I'm Seamless, and this is another How to Synth tutorial. And today I'm going to show you how to make this sound. Cool. So, this is Phaseplant. Phaseplant is currently doing a big old bundle and a sale for Phaseplant, plus a bunch of their own internal things like multipass, the Convolver, which I'm using here. And it's a partnership with ImageLine, which I think is kind of neat. I have put the link in the description of this video. But yeah, have the fun checking that out. But now let's talk about this. This is one of the funner plugins because it lets me do lots of processes all at once in ways that just no plugin let me do. In particular, this guy, like this is a lot of FMing thing, but the thing we have today is a granular generator, which is whole kinds of new for me. So let's break this down from the beginning and we'll work up to the things that make this sound like it is. So here's what this sounds like all by itself. And no, I'm not playing it very high. It's actually being FM'd by something very low. I guess an octave lower. So that's really what the main sound is, and it has controls. So here's what you get out of the granular thing inside Phaseplant. You get to take how long each individual grain is up here, and I'm actually using it with the velocity control. At least I'm supposed to be. The control for when and how long like the whole element is. There's also a note tracking for how long the thing is fully, which is handy for like the tone of it changing for each note. That's about the grain generation. That's about these individual circles you see happening. Their existence is a thing that's essentially this right there. And there's how many of them are being generated, and then there's how it's being generated, what direction, all that sort of thing. There's also this reverse action, which is neat, and it's being controlled by this external force, and so is also the position, which, if I did nothing, I wonder what's, oh, the note value. It's also controlling for it. What else is on here? Yeah, no, that's what I thought. But its position is changing, but and then, oh yeah, the audio follower also is changing it. What else? The velocity. And then, but what I was actually talking about changing is this thing, which randomizes it around our center is what that does. Or in this case, around just that one side of center, you can make it be either side, but that's, fine for our purposes here. I actually forgot what I had attached to it. It's probably the audio follower, right? Yeah. And then after this is a filter, and what the filter is doing is being FM'd by the actual thing too, but that happens after it gets FM'd primarily. Because this thing is being FM'd by a sine wave, and that's enough, but it's also FMing the sine wave back. This is important because you heard a certain warble happen when I played a low enough note, hard enough, and also you can see what the interaction is here with the velocity mod, which is that this connection is more when there's more velocity. This connection into this particular kind of FM is interesting because this says the signal is going to FM this, so like it's getting it by it, so it's a feedback system. This kind of pitch change though is different than normal pitch change because it's pure Hertz math based pitch and not note harmonic based pitch. So if I put a value in here, like 1, like it'd be 1 hertz. And that meant if I played a low note that was like 44 hertz and I put it up 1 hertz, that's a pretty big difference. But if I was playing a huge like 10K hertz sound and put it up 1 hertz, you probably wouldn't even notice. I mean, you would, it would change a little bit, but you know what I mean? It's very light, very light. So it's not an even base change. So what matters mostly is timing. And the level of this when it changes though is a bit like it's changing the center of the timing. So that means that we always, if we play a hard enough note where that's being active enough, even to this degree, we get a warble. Now, I played that high note, and you should probably have noticed from the high note that the rest of this is mostly about damage control for how high the highs are from the high notes. And that's where a filter comes in. It makes everything dark, but it makes it dark by way of FMing it. So this filter doesn't just sound like a normal low pass, just low passing a thing. It has like a quality that's tied into the rest of this. And the output of it is not the thing that's FMing this. It's the output of the actual unfiltered version. So the filtered signal is not something that gets to influence anything. So that gets busted, and then the rest of this is about unbusting it. The first lane is going to give us the control filters, which has another top end sort of fix. And then it also gives us a convolver, which helps this tone a lot. Because it makes it immediately feel like that hard brass, like harsh situation is vibrating air in a room in a way that an actual brass instrument does. Interestingly, even though we didn't really start with one. So there's a high pass in the bottom and a low pass on top that helps every note sort of stay clear of the low end interference that definitely exists with it. And because we have the poly mode on, it means every single note gets its own individual lane calculation, which means we get to have more than one position of these filters active at once instead of being limited to an individual one that probably will let some noise through. And then, as you can tell, it's also quite quiet, which is why immediately after it, we multi-pass it using a preset that comes with multi-pass called NOTT, which stands for what I think it does. It's an over-the-top OTT multi-band-esque compressor, which does it beautifully. And it has the sort of macro controls that are great. And because I'm also polylaning it, we get to have an individual one of these for the individual lanes of the control, which means everyone's warble gets to warble on their own without interfering with each other. And I have this tone generator note tracked so that my low notes get its high frequencies sort of represented and present, but the high notes don't break us because the tone is actually brought down a lot and it's a lot darker, but it's just for those notes because this note and that other note get their own generation. Now, I'm a big fan of sort of automatic generation of naturalization. Naturalness? Nature? Because what's neat about this is because the feedbacking can do what it does, it makes it so that all of these various modulations are really one modulation. Because this guy changes this guy, which changes this guy, which changes this guy, which changes the output, which changes this guy, which changes this guy, changes this guy. See what I mean? So that means that you would think what that means is that it would just be a cacophony of constant, and it would be if I put the settings to be hard enough. But you also heard that it was together, but also it moves, and also like everything that does move moves together, like everything that moves is related to each other, which is the secret sauce behind making something sound like a human played it, because that's what happens when a human plays it. A human has, a bunch of fingers, limbs, and different articulations or whatever, but they're not terribly isolated. It's actually incredible work to gain isolation. As a musician, it's sort of one of the skills that's considered masterful. And for like everything else, whenever you do, chances are whenever you do anything on any of these instruments, any other thing you're doing also at the same time has just a little bit of motion added to it from the other thing you were doing. Because you are all ultimately the one system. You're the same system. So this thing now has this sort of human quality because all of the systems are moving every other system. So whenever any of them move, they all move. So that means uniformity is just permanent. That was clipping. That's because this is polylane compressor, which means it's not being limited together. This helps because it brings down some of the lower power and also shapes it a bit. And that's why that's there, but it's just the one lane because I don't care. This is the same shape I'm going to use on all the notes. I could probably get even harder about it to shape it even harder, but I would only be doing that if I pretty much only wanted to hear this in renders. Because you saw how hard that was getting. This is one instrument. This is one instrument. It's a good one though. Yeah. So audio follower. This guy is a lot of fun. I didn't really mention him a lot. I mentioned that he's in the system, but it's an important thing to note that he's in the system polyphonically, which means that every individual note gets their own. I mentioned their own warble because you play the thing, and it moves around. You play the other thing, and it just has different quality of output. So that means the level's position will just be different, and that's gonna get a different position to the things that the level is controlling, and every note's got its own deal. I keep harping on this because I've pretty much only experienced this particular reality on hardware polyphonic synthesizers, and definitely not in the effects realm for sure. This is a fun power of just digital processing that we're utilizing right now that I'm surprised that we just have not done as much of in like already. Well, I guess I'm not that surprised considering the CPU like honk that's asking, because this computer is not exactly old, and for it to be taxing it like that implies a pretty intense amount of future-proofing that this thing possesses. If you have any questions about this, please let me know. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and all of that fun stuff. And as usual, have a nice day.